Good evening and welcome to the Replenish Me show. I'm excited to bring you yet another amazing guest to help us sort out our mind. But before I introduce you to our guest this evening, I want to tell you a little bit more about the Replenish Me show. The focus of my podcast is to help female entrepreneurs to replenish themselves so that they can stay tuned to their mission and purpose and powerfully impact the world. I'm your hostess, Cordelia Gaffar. I'm a best-selling author, international speaker, a member of the All Ladies League, social media and branding chair for the USA, and a global goodwill ambassador. And newsflash, the Replenish Me Show podcast has been nominated Podcaster of the Year. So we're super excited about that, and we'll find out the final selection in November. In my latest release, America's Leading Ladies, I detail my body soul shift process, and the ebook version is currently available, but the hardback version will soon be available. So now to tonight's guest. I have the pleasure of introducing you to a dear friend of mine and founder of DeMoriVida, Franco De Mori. And he helps scale up tech entrepreneurs to make more sales in less time, with less effort, and with nothing new to learn. Because he believes that it's all within you, and it has to do with, as you know, your state of mind. Fun fact about him, he was born in the Seychelles, but he grew up in the UK Lake District, and he's a classical pianist and was at one time also an auto mechanic. And he's done all sorts of interesting and amazing things in his life, but he'll tell us more about that throughout this interview. Welcome to the show, Franco.
Thank you very much for that lovely welcome, Cordelia. And before I carry on, congratulations on that nomination. That's really fantastic news. Very well done.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So tell me, I know a lot of the conversations we've had in the past are surrounding something that was new to me when we met, which is simply called state of mind, which I had a little bit of resistance to in the beginning, but I found it
just a little.
But I found it quite useful over the past few years. And I'd like to know, how did you find it yourself? How did you stumble across it?
Yeah, I think like most people, Cordelia, you know, I grew up. I don't know. I grew up just looking for my sort of place in the world and my place in life, and never feeling like I really fitted in everywhere, and did loads of things to try and make up for that. You know, all the usual external stuff like the high-flying job, the high-flying career, loads of money, holidays, sports cars, and all that kind of thing, which was, you know, my way of trying to find some meaning in the world. But you know, an expression that I really like to use is that these things are great on the surface, but it's very much like being thirsty and deciding to drink a cup of seawater to try and get rid of your thirst. You know, it gets rid of it in the moment, but you're even thirstier afterwards. So, you know, the last month's money isn't enough, so I've got to make more sales, and I've got to get more money, and I've got to get a bigger car, and so on and so on. And I got to a point where I hit my 30th birthday and kind of was having a bit of an early midlife crisis. And then I started sort of seeking, because I realized that if I carried on with the amount of internal stress that I had trying to maintain this facade, that I was just going to end up really ill, or, you know, even worse, in hospital with a heart attack by the time I was 40 years old. So I kind of started seeking, and I started looking around, and went through the usual path of personal development. And whilst that was really, really helpful in many respects, what I also found was that there was something missing. Again, that, you know, using that saltwater analogy, I just felt like there was something not quite there, like I was still seeking. And it's funny, you know, because when you set an intention, the answers come to us in the most obscure ways sometimes. And I'd actually gone on a holiday to Spain just to get away from a few things that were going on at the time. And I opened an email from a guy, is a well-known NLP practitioner in the UK called Jamie Smart. And he was transitioning from NLP into this state of mind understanding as the basis of how he went helping his clients. And it's funny, you know, I'd had loads and loads of emails off him, but never read them. I just thought, yeah, NLP, whatever. Well, it's just a lot of voodoo nonsense, which of course it's not, but it's very helpful, or can be very helpful. But, you know, something just said to me, open this email. I don't know what it was. It's, you know, the power of the universe, wisdom, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I opened the email, and I tell you what, Cordelia, I nearly fell off my chair. I was in this really lovely room that I was renting in an apartment block in Marbella in Spain. And it just answered. It was kind of the drink that finally got rid of the thirst, because it helped me to understand that everything I was experiencing had come about from the way I was thinking and the way I was feeling and my relationship to that thinking. So it was the most happy accident in the world.
I like that. So what I'm hearing you say is basically you were in a place where you really needed answers, and for whatever reason, you were so open to these answers that you finally opened this email.
Yeah. And not just open to the answers, Cordelia. What I really noticed at the time was that I was in a really calm and clear and relaxed place. And as you know, I'm such a huge believer in that you attract what you project energetically, emotionally. Everything that comes into your life and everything that we experience in our lives is a direct reflection of how we feel on an ongoing basis and our relationship to that, to our state of mind. So yeah, I was ready for it, and it just came and whacked me across the head.
Very nice. I love it when those things happen to me. So you were already on holiday, and now you finally got this answer. So did that quench your thirst?
Yeah, I mean, I almost quite literally fell off my chair. I'd taken my laptop with me, and I can remember that moment like it was. I mean, that was in May of 2012, and I can remember that moment like it's happening right now. It just floored me in the best possible way. I kind of felt like I was levitating, and I must have read the email probably about 15 to 20 times, and every single time I was just like, wow. He'd written this long form sales copy, and it was actually to promote an event that he was doing that I went to, and it's interesting because it wasn't like an intellectual in my mind, oh yeah, this is what I need to do. It was a real heartfelt feeling, and I just knew in that moment that finally I found the answer that I've been looking for pretty much the whole of my adult life.
So what about it touched your heart? Before you answer that, why don't you define for us what exactly the philosophy is?
Yeah, sure. So what I think I hadn't really seen up until that point, and what made the difference for me in that moment, was that to a large degree, I still felt like I was a victim's not the right word, but I felt like I was at the mercy of the circumstances going on in my life, and that I had no control over that I had to push, I had to grind, I had to hustle, I had to make things happen. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, but the problem comes, I think, with the energy that you bring to, if you want to get on, if you want to, I mean, some people vehemently disagree with the whole concept of hustle. I'm actually one of those people. I think, there's a lot of work to do, and we have to work really diligently. But I sort of don't really like the energy that's associated with that. But it really shifted things around 180 degrees for me. And I saw that I wasn't actually at the mercy of my circumstances, and that I wasn't kind of somebody who was being kind of like on a powerboat being towed along to wherever the powerboat was going. What I realized was that in any given moment that I experienced circumstances based on the quality of my state of mind. And, just to make that real, for example, is that, sometimes I can think about a situation and I can get a bit irritated about it. And then 20 minutes later, I can think about the same situation and just go, what was I getting wound up about? Now, of course, has the situation changed that much, if at all? Well, of course not. But what has changed is my relationship to my thinking about how I see that situation. And that's what the big difference is that, I love this expression that I first heard from a well-known state of mind coach in the US called Keith Blevins. And he said that we're only ever experiencing the feeling of our thinking on a moment to moment to moment basis. And it's so powerful and so true. And it's so freeing when you not just understand, but really embody the fact that, we're free to realize at any given moment that whatever we're experiencing isn't coming from what's out there. Even though it looks like it is, it's coming from what's in here and what's in here.
I love that. And see, that's I think what finally resonated with me about state of mind is I know that we have this innate wisdom that we run away from.
Yeah, don't we? I love that. Yeah. Why do we do that?
Because as some wise person says, that's the human experience.
Yeah.
So, when we stop doing that and we, like you so eloquently explain, we step back and we see that it's what energy we're, giving from our mind to a situation, that's what fuels how we feel about it and how we can interact with it. So, can we break that down just a little bit into like what that looks like for entrepreneurs? So, let's say, you're going through a time where it's very difficult to get people in a program that you've been able to feel on a regular basis, or, buy a product, let's say if it's a tangible product that people buy all the time, but for whatever reason, it's not selling. So what would that person do?
Sure. And that's a really great example, Cordelia, because it's something that we as business owners and entrepreneurs go through all the time. I know I certainly do. Sometimes I could be doing my business development, and no matter how many rejections I get, no matter how many people say no, no matter how many people don't want to connect with me, I'm like, next, whatever. And then some days, as you know, I have what I call these kitchen cupboard days where I just want to go in the kitchen, get in a cupboard, and I'm not coming out all day just because one person has said, yeah, that's not for me, or yeah, can you take me off your mailing list, or unsubscribe, or yeah, actually, I'm not up for a conversation. But to answer the question in terms of, where specifically when we're used to a particular result, we're used to a certain amount of success in something. For example, selling the program, as you stated, is that it doesn't mean that there isn't something going on out there. It doesn't mean that we can just pretend everything's okay. It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. The universe will sort it out. My program will sell if I just sit here and get myself in a really great place. No, that's not what I'm saying. And I think that, for anybody who might be wondering, is this guy just saying that it's a bit like The Secret and we just sit there and sit on the couch with a big bag of potato chips and just feel a really good feeling and everything will be sorted out? Well, of course not, because we live in a world of form. And at the end of the day, what makes things happen is the right kind of action. However, it's the energy that comes to that action that makes the difference. So in that circumstance, we can have a month where, I've not made the sales. Oh, all these people I thought were going to sign up that look like dead certs, they haven't signed up. Now there's two very simple choices there. We could go into that and panic and get stressed out and get wound up and go, oh, what am I going to do? This isn't happening. I've got to pay this bill. I'd put that money aside for that, blah, 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 blah. And you can sense it, even though I'm just using this as an example. You can feel my energy drawing in like that. And when your energy draws in like that, there's no space for fresh thinking and fresh insights to come in. There's no space for new ideas to come in, because what we've done is we then set off a chain of events through our thinking and our feeling that creates a whole lot of stress inside our minds, bodies, and our souls. And we're no use to nobody, especially ourselves when we're in that state. Now, that challenge of still having to fill the program is still there. So that's the first scenario. The second scenario is this. We can get a bit annoyed about it and go, do you know what? Program hasn't sold like I thought it would. And it's okay to get annoyed in the moment. It's okay to get a little bit upset in the moment. But again, one of my favorite metaphors is young children for how we experience the world. A little 3-year-old will be more angry than you and I will be in the next 10 years, probably, in any given 30-second period. But you know what? 2 minutes later, Mom, what's for dinner? Can I have a sandwich? Can I have the iPad? Can we go to the park? They've forgotten about it. Why? Because they haven't learned to hang on to things. They've learned to experience whatever's coming in and going out of them in any given moment. And we still have that same freedom as adults. So I can get upset in the moment about the fact that my program hasn't sold as well as I thought it was going to and that I expected. And then I can see it for what it is. Okay, yeah, right. That's a feeling that can come and go. And then I can take a step back and look at the situation with a sense of calmness, with a sense of clarity, understanding that my experience of this situation is coming from how I see my world and my state of mind. And when I see that for what it is, it's like I have a choice then. I can get upset and angry and frustrated and stressed out about it. They will do zero for me. Or I can approach it with a state of, okay, so it hasn't worked. Wonder why it hasn't worked. What can I do? What can I look at? What's the data telling me? Who can I speak to that can maybe help me shed some light on this? Same situation, very, very, very different scenario. And the only difference is understanding where our experience of upset is coming from. One experience thinking it's the outside world and the situation has us locked into that forever, and nothing gets done and nothing gets solved. And before we know it, we're repossessed, evicted, no home. The second scenario is what's possible? How can we solve it? How has this happened? What can the data tell us? It's an energy and a state of mind full of possibility. And I guarantee there will always be an answer appear in that space.
So I love that. What I'm really hearing from you is that as long as we allow ourselves to feel the emotion attached to whatever situation, right? We can allow that to happen, but then drop it and reset our intention according to what it is that we truly desire, and go about that in a way, with a heart set of curiosity. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, Cordelia. I mean, you've expressed that beautifully. And, when we talk about it like this, it seems so simple. And maybe some of the listeners are thinking, well, hang on a minute. It's not that easy and it's not that simple. Actually, do you know what? Yes, it is. It really is. But what makes it difficult, or what makes it seemingly difficult, is the fact that it's invisible. It's not tangible. The quality of our state of mind is something that's internal to us, that we feel. We can't see it in the outside world. And because of the society that we live in, we live in a world where you just read a newspaper or switch on the TV news. Actually, no, don't do that. But I'm using that as an example. It's nothing but gloom and doom. The world's coming into end. Have you been robbed? Have you been cheated? Have you been missold this insurance? You need to take this drug because you're going to get this. You're helpless. You're hopeless. You can't do anything about it. Sadly, it's not just advertising. It's not just the media. It's our school system. It's society at large. It's all around us. And so it's very easy to then think that that's how the world works. And that's what makes it difficult, because we're being influenced all the time by all these external circumstances. But having said that, we can actually choose to see that for what it is and make that choice. So it's simple when you see it, and it's incredibly difficult when you don't. But it's kind of like, you know, the more you keep reminding yourself, the quicker you see it, and the quicker you see it, the easier it is to remind yourself. So there's a degree of mindfulness involved in that as well on an ongoing basis.
And speaking of mindfulness, we're just going to allow our listeners to digest what we've talked about, and we'll have a brief commercial break where I'm going to tell you about my new program called the Replenish Mastermind. This is a 12-week program, and currently I am looking for 5 women that I can discuss this with and just share the 12 steps and get a little bit of feedback, because the program will be going live on August 26th. So if you're interested, as you're listening to this, just send me an email at cordelia@workoutaroundmyday.com, or if you're seeing this link on a post on LinkedIn, just comment below or send me a DM. So I want to welcome Franco back to the show. And let's dive a little bit deeper, okay? So far we understand that we are having a human experience which has been impacted by all these external forces. Never mind, we don't have the mindfulness techniques most often, and we don't have the emotional intelligence to really deal with stuff. But let's say that we want to turn on this, this feeling of curiosity and possibility in our thinking. What would we start with to ground ourselves?
I think it's a reminder, Cordelia, that again, it's never the circumstances. It's just that constant reminder. It's like, you know, I was asked recently on another interview to teach the audience recently to, you know, teach the audience something that they don't know, and this is exactly what I said. And it's not that everybody doesn't know this. It's just that we forget it so easily. So I'm kind of re-teaching you what you already know. And it really is that, is just understand that one of the best indicators that you're experiencing a low quality state of mind is the feeling that goes along with it. You'll feel anger, you'll feel tension, you'll feel upset, you'll feel hurt, whatever it is. It won't feel good, basically. And the other indicator simultaneously will be you'll feel some kind of tension in your body. And again, it's just getting into the habit of creating a new habit of realizing when that's happened. Sometimes it can be difficult when you've got loads of screaming kids, or you've got, you know, business that's not happening, or problems with your partner, or any combination thereof, you know, dysfunctional extended family members that you have to deal with, you know, people haven't turned, you know, the building guy hasn't turned up on time to come do some repairs on the house. All, you know, all those things can seem like they are getting on top of you. But what's getting on top of you is actually your thinking about those circumstances. And it's really that, Cordelia, just a constant reminder that when we feel upset, sad, low quality, when we feel bad, is that actually that feeling is coming from our state of mind. Now, that doesn't mean that we should try and stop it in the moment. We should just realize that that's where it's coming from. And that realization alone is enough to let it pass. And you've heard me say this so many times: be okay with not being okay. Because, you know, sometimes it's very easy to think in this world of personal development that we have to walk around being happy and positive all the time. Nonsense, you know? We're human beings having a human and spiritual experience. And that means own your sadness, own your upset, own your hurt, but just don't hang on to it. Own it when it's there and let go of it. But again, just keep remembering that you're always experiencing the quality of your state of mind in any given moment. You know, and if I could share a very quick analogy, it's that it's, you know, think about the holiday effect. For a lot of people, in the build up to when they go on holiday, just beforehand, they've got loads and loads of deadlines, you know, especially if you run your own business, but, you know, if you're employed as well. Or it may be just trying to get things organized at home before you go away. You know, you're getting more and more stressed out. You feel more and more snowed under. There's that one person who's always really winding you up, who's totally irritating, and they seem 50,000 times worse, and you want to throw them off the top of the building. Anyway, you manage to get everything done. You get yourself off to the airport, get on the plane or wherever you're going, go away 2-3 days to relax and wine, and then another week or two of just really loving being wherever you're at and enjoying a holiday. You come back to your situation, you come back to those circumstances, and you look at it and just think, what was I getting so stressed out about? You know, just do this, do that, do that, do that, problem solved. You know, even that person who was really irritating you kind of seems okay. Oh, you know, that's just them. Now, the thing is, has that situation changed very much? Of course not. But what has changed is the quality of your state of mind, because you've been away, you've been rested, you've been relaxed. But here's the thing, it's not the holiday that's done that for you. It's actually the fact that you have a calm and clear mind. And my point is that you can access that no matter how busy you are at any given point, simply by realizing that we're only ever experiencing the quality of our state of mind in the moment.
I like that analogy, and that was perfect, because what came to my mind was like, okay, so even if you've got like a stack of bills, and even if, you know, your business or your whole life seems to be just caving in on you, the reality is you're just really sitting at your desk, right?
Yeah.
And you may just really be having a cup of coffee, and that's your reality. Just all the other stuff isn't really happening, right? Because even all the impending bills, they have some date that hasn't come yet, right? And the annoying person is not in front of you, and you have a choice to be miserable about that or not. You can just like
Excuse
enjoy
me.
your coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
So that's what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And another really important element around this, Cordelia, I love what you shared just there about, you know, there's some awful mother-in-law jokes in there about, you know, we have a stress response to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to get us out of a present danger to our physical well-being. That is it. That's all the stress response is for. And yet, as human beings, part of the privilege of being human is that we have a huge prefrontal cortex that allows us to think and imagine scenarios. That's, I think it's something like about 4 or 5 times bigger than the next biggest prefrontal cortex, which I believe is a dolphin. So we can create scenarios that seem completely real to us just by thought alone. Now, that can be a beautiful and wonderful thing when we're imagining something truly wonderful. But it can also be terrible, because in days gone by, you know, we then we then had to get away from a lion or whatever dangerous animal was chasing after us. But now that lion is your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or that guy or that lady that you hate at the office, and they're still there and you can't stop thinking about them. But then, you know, it's as though you've got them in the car and driven them home with you at night, because you're still thinking about them. Like you say, they're not there now, but you can make that seem so real in the moment. And like, where are they? They're like 10 miles down the road, or, you know, probably even further. But my point around that is that, so we use our minds and our hearts and our souls to imagine awful dysfunctional situations that we don't want to have happen. And we stay stuck in that. So just stop for a minute and think, what if we turn that around on its head and use that to imagine the situations that we want to create as though we're already living in them and already enjoying them? Just a thought, just putting it out there.
I love that. And I want to move more into that next. But before we do that, I just want to share that I don't know if you saw my post recently about Bliss. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also related to our frontal cortex, because this is our hard wiring that allows us to actually experience bliss and always be in that state of curiosity, just like a child. But we have to choose that. And that's actually one of the comments I got. It's like, oh, that's great that that's there, but that's like our human right. And we're actually created specifically for bliss, but we have to really tune and tap into that. So now I want to ask you if you can share like the top 3 ways to imagine ourselves, profitable, imagine ourselves blissful, imagine ourselves exactly where we want our businesses to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing, and I think the first and most important thing is that we've got to take, number one, is we've got to take stock of exactly where we are. So you've got to know where you're at, because again, to use another analogy, it's that if I blindfolded you, drove you somewhere in a car, took you out of the car and took the blindfold off and said, right, Cordelia, here's the keys. If you're in the UK, I'm in the UK. If I said, here's the keys, Cordelia, I want you to drive to LA. What's the first question you'd ask me?
Which direction is it?
Yeah, where am I?
Yeah, where am
I? If I took you somewhere, if I blindfolded you and drove you for an hour, you'd want to know where you're at. You'd want to know where your starting point at. But this is a mistake that all of us make so often, and I've been guilty of this myself so many times, is that, I've just started going for something and ended up spinning my wheels because I've actually haven't known where I've been starting from. So I've ended up going in completely the wrong direction. So number one, that's the first thing, is get really, really, really clear on where you're at. I think the second step then is to write down not just the goal that you want, whether it's a business goal, a personal goal, a health goal, or it could even be one of each, but write down the feelings that you'll feel when you've already experienced that. And then the third point is imagine that it's already happened. And sit in the feeling of it already happened. Now, some people will say, again, you're just daydreaming. Don't be so ridiculous. That's nonsense. Well, we've just covered the fact that almost everybody in this world imagine scenarios that they don't want, and they feel the feelings of not having that, and they feel the feelings of being stressed. So again, turn that on its head. Feel the feelings of having it now, because it's a bit like if you start shopping for a blue Mercedes, you'll suddenly start seeing blue Mercedes everywhere. All of a sudden, they're in your environment. They're in your sight. Now, those cars were already there before, but because you're thinking and imagining them, then all of a sudden, like, you're locked into seeing them. So that's the thing that I always recommend and that last point is so important, feel the feelings of having already achieved it, and do that on a consistent basis, because what that will do was that it will put you in a really lovely space energetically. It'll put you in a really lovely space in terms of mental clarity. And the next action to take you in that direction will automatically come up through that. Because again, I think this is a mistake that people fall into when they've watched things like The Secret, is that they imagine, I'm just going to sit there and imagine this thing and it's just going to come to me. No, you've got to take action, because by thought and feeling, you bring the thing you want towards you, but by action, you receive it. And that's something I lifted directly from one of my favorite success books, which is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. But again, being in that space, that's so important. That last part is that the action that you need to take just emerges. It comes through and you're like, that's what I need to do. Next action. Then you do that, and you do that, and you do that, and you do that. All the while imagining that it's already happened, and you're feeling the feelings of enjoying that success right now. No matter how big it is, no matter how far away you think it might be.
I like that. Yeah. That's, it makes me think of, a lot of times people talk about visualization. That's essentially a component of what you're saying, isn't it? Like the last part.
Absolutely, yeah. It's mental rehearsal. Any successful athlete, any super successful athlete, you'll sit down, you could sit and have a conversation with them, and every single one of them will tell you without fail. I'm a huge motor racing fan, and all the most successful racing drivers will tell you that you'll see a lot of the time when they're actually sat in their cars or on their motorbikes at the start of a race. And a lot of the time they'll have their eyes closed, especially if they're sat in a racing car, and they're imagining driving around that track. They're imagining winning that race, and they'll have spent some time doing that before the race has even started. You know, any successful gymnast or track and field athlete, they'll have spent so much time, as well as doing the physical training, imagining that they've already won that race. And that's what we need to do as business people as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And it's fun as well. It makes it so much more fun.
It does. I mean, that is like a business worth having, right?
Yeah, I love that expression. Yeah.
One that you're daydreaming about, and then what's even better is like you make those daydreams come true.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, there's different ways to help you with that. You know, you can create the vision board. I use a piece of visioning software that I really like, that I found useful. You know, whatever works for you. But the key thing is imagining that it's already here, and imagining the feelings of already having it. And the biggest one being gratitude, because what's gratitude? You feel gratitude when something's already happened. So, you know, your inner mind doesn't know that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something that's already happened in the outside world and something that's just being imagined. Again, you know, people creating scenarios that they don't want inside to them. In their subconscious, it's already happened because they've got all these awful, terrible feelings going along with it. Well, let's do the same, but the other way around, and create some amazing results. But most importantly, Cordelia, it helps us to be at our best every day, so that, you know, we live in this wonderful space of, you know, love, light, and energy. And when we do take the knocks, and when we do feel down, and when we do feel upset, you know, it doesn't last very long. You know, it doesn't mean the intensity of feeling bad is any less. But again, look at really small children. They really own their anger, they own their upset, they own their tantrums, and then boom, gone, forgotten about, and they bounce back. You know, as long as they're not hungry, ill, or tired, most of the time small children are in a state of joy. And people say, well, I can't get anything done, you know, stress is my birthright when it comes to success. Well, not really, because like you look at a 3-year-old and try and stop them from doing what they want to do when they're in a really, really fantastic place. You know, it's like, I wish you would get a bit stressed out and slow down.
I'm intimately, you know, aware of that.
Yes, you are. I don't know how you do it. I take my hat off to you.
Yeah, they're not 3 anymore, but you know, it doesn't really stop at 3, just so you know.
Yeah, just saying.
Yeah, it gets a little bit more pronounced. But the good thing about that, you know, for any mothers who are also entrepreneurs, to Franco's point, look at your children, right? And see even your moody teenagers, when they come out of their mood, you know, their bad mood, when they're in their good mood and they really lean into that, you know, if you kind of readopt that, that behavior, you know, and kind of turn it on its head, that can work to your advantage. I would have to say, personally, that's how I came up with my Replenish Me program, was just really watching the the moods of my children and how easily they, you know, they can come out of one mood and they really, you know, understand about it. But I'm that mother that actually, you know, I studied extensively emotional intelligence because I homeschool, and I know that you can't learn anything new, right? If you don't have an understanding of your emotions. And so whenever they're transitioning moods, I do encourage them to communicate about that. So if, you know, you don't have someone to talk to, about the way you're feeling. And you know, as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we feel like nobody really understands what we're going through. And even if they're an entrepreneur, right? Because everybody's journey is individual. But the great thing is, you know, don't make yourself an island, you know, and you can, you know, you can actually turn things around just by sparking conversation. If you're feeling miserable, like, you know, one thing I like to do is I'll just like go to the grocery store, and there's always some little old lady or some pregnant lady that needs some help. And you just, you know, just helping that person and reaching out and them smiling and, oh, wow, thank you. Because they were feeling like you were just feeling, right? They were being an island. Nobody cares about me in the world, or, you know, my husband's at work and I have to get these groceries with this toddler, you know? And so this is another way to tune into your self-compassion by having compassion for others, and it helps you to have gratitude, and it can change your state of mind. So when I said at the beginning that I had some resistance to state of mind, I started looking around my world to see all the things that Franco was telling me, and seeing how I can really like implement that. So those are some of the things I came up with. And I'm sure, like, for those of you listening, go back and listen to the 3 steps that he gave, and, you know, really write it down and see what you can do. I mean, actually, we're having golden moments per minute here in this conversation, I think, listening to you. And I really am happy that you're here. I'm even more excited that going forward, right, part of my Replenish Me brand is doing live events. So we're looking to try something in Birmingham, right, at some point.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that, Cordelia. It's going to be so much fun, but really, really valuable to the people who come along. You know, you get to learn some awesome stuff. You go away feeling really wonderful, but you've had a really great time, you know, not because there's all this wisdom at the front of the room with you and I, but it's about all the wisdom that's already in the people that are already attending. So I'm really looking forward to making that happen.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to the point about not being an island, this will be a way to create smaller communities, because, you know, I'm looking to have like 20, 30 people max at these events, where we can actually mastermind on the concepts and try and see, okay, we're going to leave this event not just feeling good, but with some work.
Yeah.
Yeah, things to do. Yeah. So how
Yeah.
can people find you, by the way?
Yeah, sure. So, excuse me. There's a couple of ways, Cordelia. I'm on LinkedIn. If you look up Franco De Mori, and De Mori is DEM for mother, ORI, and Franco's with a C. I'm also on Facebook as well. I have a Facebook group which is primarily for technology entrepreneurs. And if you'd like to contact me directly, my email address is Franco, Franco, at DeMoriVida. So that's my surname, De Mori, and then Vida, Vida, altogether.com.
And I think, yeah, do you have a YouTube channel? I know you were working on that.
Yeah, I did have. I don't at the moment. I'm in the process of putting together a load of videos that'll be hosted on Vimeo. So when that's available, I'll be sharing that.
Oh, very nice. I love that. So, but you're not off the hook. I'm here yet. I was just, you know, talking about some of the ways that people can connect with you, because I'm sure that, you know, our listeners and viewers are really gaining from everything you're sharing. And while, like you keep saying, it sounds super simple, it does require some hand holding. And I just want to be able to, you know, reach out to you so they can get the guidance that they need. And so you're in the UK, right?
I'm in the UK, yeah. In Leeds, in the north of the UK, yeah.
Okay. All right. Your accent is a little bit different. So, like, as in, yeah.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody listening, you know, if you do have any questions around this, you know, please honestly get in touch, drop me an email, and I'm always happy to help in any way I can.
All right. I'm going to let you take a little bit of breather while I, again, do a small promo. So as I mentioned earlier, I am a member of All Ladies League, the US chapter on entrepreneurship, which is why I've been having lots of guests on talking about entrepreneurship. And we're having our inaugural event in Dallas, September 27th and 28th. And so far, if you're a subscriber to my YouTube channel, you may have seen some of the videos of the speakers that we've rolled out. We're going to have an intimacy coach there. We're going to have someone coming to talk to us about stepping up our video presence. We'll have someone helping us to find ways to get generational financial help, and different panels just to help us so that we can have it all. And All Ladies League is focused on women, but we will have men's speakers as well as female speakers. And you can get your tickets by going to bit.ly/all Dallas, and it's all caps. So look forward to meeting you in Dallas in September. And so we're going to close out the show these last few minutes just with some real, let's use one case study that you can think of where you took someone, I guess you specifically work with tech entrepreneurs. So just if you can think of a story of a favorite client and what was their situation and how you helped them to reach their goals.
Sure. The first one that springs to mind, Cordelia, is excuse me, was a lovely lady that I worked with who was very, very successful in the financial services industry, and she had a very high level presentation to give to her company and to some other associated companies. And it was funny because when you meet this lady, you think, my goodness, she's just got everything together. She looks wonderful, she dresses immaculately, her energy is wonderful, knows her industry inside out and back to front. And so when she came to me asking for some help after she'd spoken to another client of mine, she was a word of mouth referral. I was really quite surprised, and I remember actually saying to her in the sort of onboard conversation, was like, what do you need my help for? You just got everything together, and it was amazing. She said, you know what? I feel like such a huge imposter. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And this lady's earning a fortune, great home life, and so on and so on and so on. But it's funny, like you were saying. Like you were saying earlier, she had been an island because she's so used to supporting everyone else and so used to feeling like she has to lead the way and look strong and be successful, that had then begun to manifest itself as this huge imposter syndrome. But she'd just become like a second degree black belt at hiding it. So she actually came to me with this problem about this high level presentation that she had to do, because basically she said, I'm just going to completely screw it up. It's going to be disastrous for me, disastrous for the company I work for. She was a very high level exec there, and from a brand building point of view, it says it'll be brand burying, I think was the expression that she used. Now, of course, but she thought it was a presentation skills problem. That was the thing. She said, I've heard that you're really good at presenting. Can you help me with that? And I said, yeah, I've done loads of presenting. And as we talked more, I said, look, can I have your permission to share what I really think's going on? And she said to me, of course, that's why we're having this conversation. And I said, you don't need any presentation skills. I said, I bet you're probably a better presenter than I am, technically, in terms of skills. I said, but what you have got going on is a massive thinking problem. And, she actually just burst into tears. I'm like, oh gosh, what have I said? And I said, "You okay?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "What's up?" And she said, "You're absolutely right." She says, "You've just cut straight to the heart of what's going on." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, gosh, I felt that I'd done something wrong." But that's what happens in coaching. We're there to ask the difficult questions, and sometimes that means creating a safe enough space for someone to let go and express that kind of emotion. And anyway, so we spent the next few months working on her understanding of where that experience of being an imposter, where that experience of not being good enough was really coming from, where that experience of she was going to screw it up was really coming from. Because, she knew intellectually that it wasn't right, but she didn't feel it in her heart. That was the problem, because she'd then start believing all these stories that she'd connect to all these other stories. So, first and foremost, we spent the next 2.5 out of the 3 months working just on her understanding of where that experience was coming from. And we actually then did work on some specific skills around about how she was going to present and whatnot. But the point was that we had to sort out the human operating system part first, which we did. And you know what? It was her presentation was a resounding success, brought in loads of business. Her directors, her business owners loved her. The new clients loved her, and it was just a resounding success all around. And that for me is where the magic in this is, because life's too short for brilliant people to feel stuck when they're capable of making such a huge change in the world in terms of business, impactful business. But I think more importantly for me was the fact that it completely transformed how she felt about herself. And it was wonderful. I remember she told me, I met her about 6 months later. She says, one of the things she mentions is, people keep coming up to me saying, "What is it with you? You're really different." And I can't put my finger on it. And I'm like, yeah, it's our little secret. But yeah, and there was just so many stories like that, Cordelia, where people think it's about the money, it's about the presentation, it's about the sales, which of course that's a very important part of building a business. Otherwise we're wasting our time. But first and foremost, it comes to our understanding of how we really work and how we really experience our world. And that's what I love doing, is helping people make those kind of transformations day in, day out.
Nice. And it sounds like you don't mind. A lot of the great coaches that I love working with, that they say they want to, what is it? They work themselves out of a job, right?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite expressions, because I'll often say to a potential client or a client when we just started is, I want you to put me out of business as quickly as possible. And they're like, what are you talking about? I want you to not have to work with me as soon as possible. Like, well, don't you want to make as much money as you can? Well, of course I do, but I also want you to be able to run with this by yourself effortlessly as quickly as possible. And what's amazing about that, Cordelia, is that with this particular client, we got to the end of our 3-month engagement, and it's happened with a few other clients as well. And I said to her, okay, we've had this, we've had this, we've had this, and she's really, really happy. And told me about some really interesting personal changes it had made for her as well, which I won't share here. But I said, okay, well, it's been wonderful working with you. Keep in touch. And when I'm developing a new program, and when that's ready in 3 to 6 months' time, do you want to hear about it? And she said, hang on a minute, I'll decide. I'll decide when you're sacked. And you're like, what? She said, you're not going anywhere. She said, look, imagine if we can do this in 3 months, imagine what we could do in 6 months working together. So she said, the thing is, I don't need to work with you anymore. I want to work with you. Nice. And we ended up working together for about another 9 months, actually. And, we still occasionally work together for short periods every now and again, but, keep in touch on a regular basis. And that for me is magic, because that's the whole thing. It's ironic, really. It's like, I want you to not need me, and then the client's like, yeah, but it's not about needing you. I want us to work together for a long period of time. So who'd have thought trying to turn away business actually brings it towards you?
Yes, great way to to sell yourself. Look,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't need me. And you know, the other thing I'm hearing there, the great part of what you said was, you know, we're always fed that everything's a quick fix. Oh, in 90 days you can do this, 90 days you can do that. But the reality is, it really takes at least a year for some real transformation to occur, you know. And while, yes, I have a 12-week program, but there's ongoing support after that, you know.
yeah,
And I,
yeah,
you know, we're just being realistic here. So as coaches, clearly, you know, we want people to find their wisdom and to depend on their own wisdom, but learn how to actually do that in a sustainable way. And most often, that's not going to happen in 90 days. So
yeah.
I like that story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And any last words of wisdom before we close tonight?
No, no, that's really all I wanted to share. You know, as you know, I could sit here and talk till 6 o'clock in the morning, but I wouldn't wish that upon you or any of your wonderful listeners.
Oh,
So I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Cordelia. It's a real privilege to be here.
absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And for those of
Pleasure.
you who are listening, um, sharing is caring. I'm sure that you've gained some insight on what is state of mind, how it can support you. Share this with your network. To listen to this podcast and all previous episodes, you can visit cordeliagaffar.com. And I invite you to listen next time when I have Cheryl Wood, who will be one of the speakers at the All Ladies League event in Dallas, which is We Can Have It All, September 27th and 28th. And she's also the one responsible for me being nominated for Podcaster of the Year. So that should be a good show. So until next time, have replenishing thoughts. Good night.